Hi, this is Teresa with Color Crazy. I created this tips and techniques video for the spring bouquet to show you how to create the key design elements for this panel. It doesn't include every single step, just enough details to help you finish the design. If you've never locker hooked before, I strongly encourage you to view the other how-to videos for locker hooking at colorcrazy.com. When you're locker hooking the rows around the design, you want to pull up loops that are 3/8 inches high, slightly higher than the rest of the design. This will help create fluffy loops that frame the design nicely. Once you've locker hooked the frame, the next key step is tracing the design elements from the pattern. Use a permanent marker. I like to use a black marker, but you can choose to use different colors. And you'll definitely want to make sure to trace around each of the flowers and the stems. And for the centers of the flowers, make sure to mark the complete rows. Just count across and outline each of the flower designs. It's important to make sure that the flowers are placed the same distance as the square count in the pattern from the edge of the frame. We are ready to get started and create the petal texture for a large flower. Each large flower will take approximately 4 yards of fabric strips, but you're going to want to use 1 yard at a time. You can see you have your flower marked with the center outlined and also the outline of the flower. This is what you'll be working with. And what you're going to want to do is take long stitches in a spiral that go from the center to the outer edges. Leave a tail as you work. Don't worry about the stitches being perfect or exactly the same distance apart. You just want to make sure you're filling the space. And also, this fabric will fray a little, but no need to worry about that, as it will just add a lovely texture to the edges. Just make sure you continue to work in a spiral and take stitches, long stitches, as you go. And here we have finished with the first yard, and we are going to start on the second yard of fabric strip. And you want to just continue to take the long stitches to create the petal background. You just keep working in a spiral, filling in, and then pretty soon you'll begin to start layering as you go around in the spiral to fill in the flower form. And here we are working with the third yard of fabric strip, and we left a tail here, and always leave a tail when you start with a new strip, and you can try and sew them in as you go. You want to continue to take these long stitches, and as you can see, the petals are now layering nicely and creating that flower shape. One thing you want to make sure is that you are catching the edge of the fabric, the actual canvas edge, where it's marked, to make sure you fill in with stitches that cover that entire shape of the flower. And here we have all 3 yards nicely stitched, And as you can see, the petal shapes are getting nice and textural and kind of filling in nicely. I still have a little bit of space here to fill in with this 4th yard of fabric strip. So we are going to do that by making some final stitches. And you're just going to want to use the entire fabric strip to kind of fill in and add some fluffy petals. Use your fingers, as I mentioned before, to shape the petal stitches. And even after you finish the design, there's enough fabric strip material in your kit to add even more, another layer, more petals if you feel the need. Once you've finished the design, you can go back and add a little bit more. And here's how your flower will look once you've finished stitching on all 4 yards of fabric strips. As you can see, the petal shapes are nicely formed by the stitches, and sometimes I use my fingers to scrunch them, tighten them a little bit if needed. But it's nice and fluffy, and it looks like petal texture. Now the next step is to start stitching the center, and you're going to want to of course use your locker hook for that, but you do not need to use locking medium. We want some nice loose loops so that we can create a center texture that will be interspersed with ribbon and the other fabric strips. So you are going to want to pull up the loops, and you work these through right where you stitched the fabric petals. And yes, it seems a bit snug, but it actually, if you just press right through, it works just fine. And you just pull up extra long loops. I would say about 3/8 of an inch high. Once you've pulled up your loops for the first row around the center, they should look something like this, just a little bit loose around the edge. And here we are going to continue to add texture for the center of the flower. As you can see, we have locker hooked some loops here without locking medium for the center. And now I'm going to show you how you just pull up ribbon, and you pull up loops kind of interspersed around the edge. You don't have to pull up in every single square, but you want to kind of line the edge with this ribbon. It sort of outlines it very nicely. And you just continue to do that around the edge of the center. And here the flower center is complete with ribbon around the edge and on the inside. And now we want to lock or hook the smaller flowers. And you definitely want to use locking medium for this part. Sometimes locking medium serves to hold your loops in place, but also to give your design shape. It creates direction. And these small little flowers definitely need locking medium to give them shape. You want to pull up loops that are 1/4 inch in height, but also interspersed with longer loops, maybe 3/8 inches, just to give them texture. And work your way around. These are small flowers, so it's just basically circles of loops, some slightly higher than others for a textural look. And you pull your locking medium through and continue to create the shape. And here's how it looks when you've finished with the locking medium, pulling it together and giving it its shape. While you're working on this design, there are going to be plenty of instances when you can travel your locking medium and also travel your yarn. And I just want to show you how we're going to do that right here as we create this other small flower. I ended here after I did the center, and now I'm going to travel through this loop to move the locking medium. This way I don't have that many tails. And I'm going to go right to where the other flower begins, which you should always double check your pattern is right there. And I'm going to start with my loops. And I'm actually traveling the back fabric strip a little bit to get to where I need to start pulling up loops. And this is what you do to travel your fabric strip. So this is what you do to complete large flowers and the small flower designs. Use these techniques to fill in the rest of the design as you work on your panel. I'm almost done with the design, but I wanted to show you how to create a flower bud. To do this, you take the fabric strip according to the pattern and you make a straight stitch or slightly diagonal stitch, and you want to continue to make stitches. Each bud takes approximately 8 stitches, but you can add a little more if you want a little more volume. And you're taking straight stitches and then slightly diagonal stitches to create volume and to create the bud shape. So first you take stitches straight up and then to the sides, and then you continue to layer your stitches. And once you're finished with these stitches, you'll see the bud taking shape. And then you're going to want to just push in the sides and create that bud shape and clean it up by pulling up any frayed edges. Well, this design is almost complete, but I just wanted to show you again how to travel a fabric strip and locking medium and how you work that. And we are definitely using locking medium for the background because it holds the loops together nicely and gives it that texture that you want to have. And we are locker hooking and pulling up loops right up to this shape of a bud that is kind of in the way, and so we're going to want to work around it by traveling the fabric strip behind it and going right to the other side. And so we're right there, and then we're going to go through that square and travel the fabric strip behind it, just like that, and continue locker hooking. And that's how you travel your fabric strip. And we continue to fill in. And sometimes you'll get a little fraying with this fabric. I just wanted to reiterate that you can just pull up any loose or frayed threads, and it doesn't harm the fabric at all. It just gives it a nice looking texture. Okay, so here we have the locking medium that is kind of in the way, and we are going to pull that up and clip it because we are going to just sew those tails in out of the way of the bud and clean that up a little bit. And you just want to, of course, use the back of your hook to weave through the loops and grab the locking medium. This is often a bit challenging, but if you press it through, you generally can get it through there with a little extra help. There we go. And you just yank it through. And we're going to do this other one here too. Okay, and there you go. I hope these tips and techniques help with this great locker hooking project. The Spring Bouquet panel is part of a garden series that currently includes the winter and autumn bouquet designs. The kits for these designs include all materials and full-size patterns and are available on colorcrazy.com. Stay tuned for the summer design coming soon.